and welcome to this pipe band drumming workshop as part of Stinhaven's online folk festival. As with many things this year, it's a very different festival, everything going online instead of in the real world. So hopefully everyone enjoys this chance to have a wee go at one of my favourite tunes, a jig called Rory MacLeod. Okay, it's a pipe tune that was written by the great Donald MacLeod. Apparently the first tune he ever wrote when he was only 14 years old. Something I only learnt about 10 minutes ago when I looked up the pipe music. So what we're going to try and do here is look at two snare scores at a different level. One that is suitable for beginners and one that's just a wee bit harder for you guys that's been playing a little bit longer. Maybe a kind of upper grade 4, grade 3 kind of level, something like that. And over the next kind of 40 minutes or so, we're just going to play around with some phrases, do a few warm-ups to start with, and then end up with the complete tune along with that recording there. Big thanks to my good friend Scott Oliphant for recording the pipe tune for me in the last few days. Very difficult being a drummer just now, unless you actually live with a piper. God forbid. So we're going to start off with a couple of warm-ups, and because it's a jig, we're going to frame the warm-up around jig style. Okay, Rory MacLeod is a 6/8 jig, so 2 beats in the bar. So we're going to try and use some 3 6s and 12s just to get the hand started, look at some triplets and mix in flams, drags, singles, and the different roll movements we're going to use in the tune, so that when we go on the tune itself, it should feel pretty easy to pick up the phrases. Okay, so we're going to start off just nice and easy, get the fingers going, okay? So we're going to start with some 3s. 1, 2, 3. Try and get some nice big strong movements using the fingers and thumbs. Get the wrists moving a wee bit. Sixes. Twelves. Back to 3s. Sixes. Twelves. Okay, and just to keep going with the 3s and 6s, we're going to break it down into smaller groups, going 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1. Okay, try and keep a beat going if you can, so that you're getting used to this jig time. Ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Let's take it up a bit. Okay, and we're now going to do the same thing with a group of 6. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. Take it up a bit and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now we're going to start to look at kind of triplet groups. So going hand to hand to start with, and we're going to put an accent on the first of each three. So we're going to start off just 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. A wee bit faster. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Okay, the next step, we're going to replace those accents with flams. Right, the flams are going to be a big part of these scores, so let's just get them warmed up. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Bit faster, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Okay, next thing we're going to try and do is add in some little single runs, right? And we're going to use groups of 5, starting and finishing on the right hand, with a left hand 3 in between to keep the rhythm moving along. So it's going to sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. There we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take it a bit faster. 2, 3, 4. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Next thing we're going to do, add in some roll movements. Okay, we're going to mostly stick with the 7-stroke roll. There's a couple of 5s to go in as well. So we'll start with the 7-stroke roll. Okay, and we're going to get a little group after it, finishing onto a flam. 7-stroke roll, 1, 2, 3, flam. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, now we're going to try and put the 5-stroke roll into some jig timing. So we're going to get, so we've got a left hand tap, right handed 5-stroke roll, buzz buzz tap, then 1, 2, 3, right hand flam to finish. Tap, buzz tap, triple, 1, 2. And a wee bit faster. 1, 2. One more. Okay, we're also going to have the 5-stroke roll starting on the beat. So let's try that pattern now. 5-stroke, tap, triple, flam. 1, 2. 2. 2. 2. Bit faster. 1, 2. And one more. Okay, and the last little bit of warm up, the drag. Okay, so we're only going to use right hand drags because I don't know anyone on the planet that likes a left handed drag, so we're not going to do them. Okay, we're going to stick with the right handed drag, and we're going to put it on the 3rd note of the beat. So it'll be 1, 2, drag. 1, 2, drag, 1, 2, drag, 1, 2, drag, 1, 2, drag. And the way it's going to pop up in the tune, it's going to have a little run of singles after it. So let's try and put a right hand run of 5 after that drag. 1, 2, drag, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, drag, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. 1, 2, drag, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 1, 2, drag, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we'll move on to the actual phrases from the tune now. Okay, lots of similarities between these two versions, but the second one just adds a little bit more. It's got a wee accented roll movement, a little bit more single work, and a little run of offbeat singles in the second part as well. So we'll just alternate between the two as we build the phrases up, and then at the end we're going to try and run through both versions along with the recording of the pipe tune. So starting with version 1, our opening phrase, first 2 bars. Okay, and to keep it steady, we're going to set the metronome to 95 beats. Okay, 2 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that opening phrase there, really helping the pipe tune stand out. The pipe tune starts with that same crotchet quaver rhythm at the beginning, so when I really accent the really go for those first 2 there. Listen to the pipe tune, try and follow the natural accent that's coming from what the pipers play. Okay, so the second version, right, is going to add a wee run of singles into the phrase. So it's going to go 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. So still pulling out that big accent at the start there to go with the tune, but then using the singles just to fill the score out a wee bit more and add a little bit more complexity to the rhythms. Okay, so moving into the second phrase, that's bars 3 and 4 on the top line. We're going to use a left-handed 5-stroke roll here. So we're going to get flam, okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure the left hand stays low after the opening flam, so you're ready for the 5-stroke roll. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Good. Okay, and in version 2, almost the same phrase, but we're finishing with a run of singles. So we'll go all the way up onto the beat. Okay, after 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's us halfway along the first line now. Feel free to pause if you need to, have a little break, think it through, try some of those phrases again maybe before we move on to the second half of the line here. So both versions of the tune follow a very, very similar pattern here, almost identical, except the second version we're going to accent the 7-stroke roll at the start of the phrase. So we replace the first buzz with a tap sound. This is going to make it easier because we're coming in with a run of singles. It's also just going to help this roll have even more impact to help influence the pipe tune. Okay, so in version 1, we're using a 7-stroke roll at the beginning here, so make sure you go in with a buzz. Okay, it's the start of the phrase, so you could make it a wee bit on the heavy side. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the only changes in the change I should say in the second version, accent the first roll, so on a tap sound to give it a bit more emphasis. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. One more time. 2, 3, 4. Okay. So now we're on to the end phrase of the tune, and this is going to come up at the end of every line in the drum score. Pretty standard feature in a lot of tunes, as I'm sure you know. Tends to help the tune and the drum score feel that it's all part of the same piece of music rather than just random rabble of notes and different phrases constantly coming out. The pipe tune sticks with the same ending as well, so it makes sense for us to do the same. Okay, so endings are a wee bit different this time between the two versions of the tune. The first one, we're just sticking to some flam work here. The second version, again, we're going to add in some singles, and there's a little bit more work to do with the stick pattern in the second version as well, so we might break that down slightly more when we get onto it. So version 1, a couple of right hand flams at the start here. The third flam into the phrase, make sure you get your left stick up. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so those left hand flams are harder work, right? You've got to make sure you use thumb, wrist, a little bit of work from your elbow as well, just to make sure you get the height in the stick to get the clear sound there and not end up with a false flam sound of both sticks coming down at the same time. Okay, the two flams at the very end of the line there, right, left. Okay, it's worth practicing that movement on its own. Make sure as soon as you play the first one, the right stick stays down to give you a fighting chance of getting a good left hand flam to finish off the line. The second one should have the emphasis. Okay, don't try and play heavy on the first flam, or it'll be almost impossible to fit in at full speed. Okay, so the second version of this one, the harder version of the phrase, the first 3 notes, flam, left, left hand flam. A little bit of work to do here with that left stick. Right, 2 reasons for doing this. One, if you're really comfortable with the score and you're starting to get a bit of speed going there, all too easy to take off into the distance and play too fast. So by playing flam, left, left hand flam, it's a little bit awkward. It's going to slow you down. It's going to stop the tune running away from you. And it gives you the correct kind of stick position to flow onto the run of singles. Where if you played a right hand flam there, your right hand's coming from quite a high position, you're likely to hammer out the first note of the run of 5 and get a pretty unmusical kind of sound coming through the phrase there. So that's why flam, left, flam, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, flam, flam. That's why we've gone for that order of notes. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's his work through the first line. Second line's identical. Okay, I've just chosen to write the tune out straight through rather than put repeat marks in. Something I tend to do when I'm writing the music down, because then it makes it easier if there's, say, any variations in the bass and tenor scores, especially in terms of either visual marks or the splits and marking them down. So it makes sense to keep the snares on the same amount of lines as the tenors, and then when you refer to line 1, line 5, whatever, it's the same for everyone. Okay, so what we're going to do now is try and piece together that first line. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to take the first two phrases, so bars 1 and 2, bars 3 and 4, and we're going to play them with a small pause between them. Then we'll do the same with bars 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, and then we'll join them together, and then we'll try and pull the whole line in. Okay, so bars 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Bars 3 and 4. Same again. 1, 2. 2, 3, 4. Again. 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. One more time. 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. Okay, we'll now do the same thing with the harder version. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we'll do the same now with the second half of the line. So version 1, bars 5 and 6, pause 7 and 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Same again. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, and let's do it now with the version 2. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Same again. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. And again. 2, 3, and 2, 3, 4. One more time. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this time we're going to try and play the first half of version 1 without stopping. We're going to have a pause for 4 beats and then straight into the second half. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 'Same again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. And again. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's do the same thing now with version 2, the harder version. So first 4 bars, pause, then the second 4 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. One more time. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this time we're going for the whole line. Okay, version 1. 1, 2, 3, and. Okay, this time we'll do it twice through. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and now on to version 2. We'll play the first line all the way through after 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Twice through this time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's us halfway through the tune now. Okay, we've covered the first 2 lines there. It's the same thing on both lines really. Going into the second part, in both versions of the tune here, we're going to play a heavy upbeat or catch note going into the start of the part here, and then we're going to take the volume down a wee bit. Okay, got to remember in the pipe band, your drummers are the volume control of the band. Okay, the pipers can only play at the volume their particular setup gives them, so their combination of reeds and chanter and drones and so on. If they change the blowing, they're going to alter the pitch of the instrument until eventually it cuts out, but it's not going to get any louder or quiet. So the impression of a volume change in a pipe band has to come from the drum corps. So make sure you're looking out for the accents, some of the crescendo markings on the music as well, to try and influence the overall effect of the tune here. Okay, so let's say we're going to start with a heavy accent on the catch note, and then we're going to take the volume right down and gradually bring it up over the phrase here. Okay, now both versions start with the same phrase. Okay, and what you're going to find is that the flams are at the end of the beat. They're on the kind of the third note of each group of 3. So you're going to get this really offbeat kind of effect. Double flam at the end there. Okay, and we're trying to build the phrase up. Okay, so here we go. Okay, let's say it's the same on both versions here. So we'll just go through it a bunch of times to cover both here. One, 2, 3, and 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, and. Okay, so after the accent, the height should come right down low and gradually be climbing back up again. 1, 2, 3, and. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay. The next phrase for both again starts the same. It starts with a 5-throat roll and a drag. Then there's a wee bit of a difference. Okay, version 1 we stick with a pretty traditional run of 5, right? Okay, everyone's used to that. The second version, we're going to move the run of singles off beat. We're going to split it across beats 1 and 2, so you get this little offbeat effect coming through. Okay, so version 1 sounds like this. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Try not to lock your fingers over the stick during the drag movement. I know it's very tempting. Keep those 2 fingers out of the way. Let your thumb do all the work. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so version 2 starts the same with the, and then we go off the beat. So 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's a wee accent in the first note of the run of 5 singles there, right? And that, it's kind of like a launch pad, right? It's to let those singles get moving there. So give it a wee bit of energy. Okay, it's not huge, but it's just there. It's almost 3, 4. Okay, so for version 2, we're simply adding some singles at the end. And finishing on a flam this time, okay? So right hand ready to go there. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, and the end phrases, like I said earlier, have stayed the same. Okay, let's just run through them a few times just to refresh them. So version 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, and the ending for version 2 with a run of singles. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're now going to go through the same process with lines 3 and 4 as what we did with the first part of the tune. We're going to just start to build the blocks that we're playing into bigger and bigger amounts of the tune so that we can get the whole thing up and running, okay? So we're going to start with bars 1 and 2, little pause, bars 3 and 4. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Same again. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. One more time. 2, 3, 4. Okay, and we'll do the same thing with version 2 now. Okay, remember big accent at the start and then get that volume to drop down. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, and 2, 3, 4. One more time. 1, 2, 3, and. Okay, so let's move on to the second half of the line now. So bars 5 and 6, pause, 7 and 8. Here we go with version 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. One more time. 2, 3, 4. Okay. And we'll do the same thing now with version 2. So let's get bars 5 and 6 and into 7 and 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, and. Okay, so let's build it into bigger sections now. So we'll do the first half of the line, pause, second half of the line. Remember the big accent at the start. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and. 2, 3, 4. Same again. 2, 3, and. 2, 3, 4. Two, three, 4. 2, 3, and. One more time. 2, 3, and. 2, 3, 4. Okay, into the second version of the tune now. Same thing. First half, pause, second half. 1, 2, 3, and. 2, 3, and. 2, 3, and. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, and. 2, 3, 4. One more time. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, and. Okay, so whole part now. Okay, so we'll try it once through, little break, and then twice through. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 'Kay, twice through this time. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now we'll do the same thing for version 2. Okay, once through to start with. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, really got to keep those singles moving towards the end of the line there so it doesn't fall behind the beat. Twice through this time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so that's us covered both parts, using the phrases to build it up into the complete parts of the tune. Okay, so what we're going to do next is try the whole tune along with the chanter. Okay, start to listen to the pipe tune and see where these accents are starting to pick up on what the pipes are doing. Feel free to pause and take a wee break before we go on to that. Okay, or power on straight into it. Okay, so we'll start with version 1 and get all the way through here. Okay, the count in will come from the piper, so listen carefully.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so hopefully going through there you can hear where some of those big accents, especially the very beginning, are matching up to the pipe tune. Some of those offbeat flams in the second part, again, are starting looking for certain points of the pipe tune. So I'm hearing a couple of high notes that stick out for me, right? For whatever reason, they just really jump out at me. So I thought, right, let's highlight those with some accents, some flam sounds coming through. Okay, let's try version 1 one more time, and then we'll have a go with the second.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so if there's anything left in your hands, let's go for version 2. Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So again, hopefully you can hear where some of those patterns are accenting what the pipe tune does. The singles are kind of going into places to let the tune flow along a bit more, and then the accents come back in to highlight maybe a longer sound or just a note that stands out among the rest, maybe because it's a higher note or a lower note than what's going on in that part of the tune, and so on there. Okay, so let's have one more go at that version there.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So there we have it, a two-part version of Rory McLeod. I hope you've enjoyed this session. If there's any questions about the tune, or anyone needs a little bit of help just figuring out some of the movements, feel free to get in touch with me. Drop me an email or whatever via the festival website. All right, thanks very much.